Today I want to show you how you can improve the quality of the photos you take and of those that you edit by introducing you to 3 really simple principles. These principles are understanding the importance of a clear subject matter, the light and the dark areas in your image, and the importance of focus. I'm going to unpack these 3 principles through demonstration of an image that I've taken in Lightroom. So in this photograph, my subject is clearly Kirsten, and what I'm trying to do is draw as much attention to the subject as possible. And the way that I'm going to do that is utilize my understanding of the principles of the light and dark areas in the image, as well as the focal points in the image to draw more attention and tell my visual story. The first thing that I'm going to want to do is I want to adjust the white balance to make it look a little bit more natural and not so warm, and then I'm going to bump up the exposure in the image so I can clearly see her face somewhere around there. Now, the way that our mind perceives images is that our attention is first drawn to the lightest point in the image and then the point that is most in focus. So having made those minor tweaks on this photo, the first thing that your eye is drawn to are these very light spots behind her and then probably on her face. When I see her first, I see that light spot over there, and then I'm drawn to that spot on her face. And that's not really serving the purpose of what I want to achieve with this image. So I'm going to have to make some adjustments, namely by darkening these areas at the back and then trying to bring out my subject matter by highlighting her face. So first things first, what I'm going to do is adjust my contrast, highlights, shadows, whites and blacks to try to get the image looking as close to the final product as I want, and then I'm going to go in and utilize my understanding of those principles in order to make a better photo. As you can see, I've made some really subtle adjustments, and here is the before and here is the after. So already the image is looking a lot better, but I'm still being distracted by these really bright portions of the image. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go onto my adjustment brush tool, and I'm going to use 2 very important features, the dodge and the burn. So I'm going to start off with the burn, and I'm going to highlight the areas that I want to darken in my image. So I'm just going to brush over these over here. What you can do is you can hit the O key on your keyboard, and that's going to bring up a mask to show you where you have and haven't brushed. So I'm just going to go over some more of these areas, make sure they're all brushed in nice and evenly. Now if you've brushed into an area that you want to erase, simply hit the Alt key on your keyboard and you'll be presented with a minus tool, and then you can just clear up the areas that you don't want to have your brush on. I'm going to go ahead and hit the O again, and I'm going to come over to my sliders and pull the exposure down. Now already you can see Kirsten is starting to pop in the image and the background is less distracting. I'm going to leave it like that, and again just make sure I've brushed in all the areas nice and evenly so that we've got a clean looking image. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new adjustment brush. I'm going to use my dodge tool, which is going to lighten, and I want to lighten on her face because I feel like it's still too subdued, and I really want to draw attention to her face as that is what my subject in this image is. So I'm going to hit O, take a look at where I've brushed. That looks pretty even, and now I'm going to start adjusting my exposure on her face on that slider and just pull it up slightly. So you can see that's already looking a lot better. My attention is drawn more into her face, which is what I want. So we'll go over a simple before and after there. That's looking a lot better already. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to address those light patches that are on her face. So there's one on her cheek and then there's one on her ear. And what I'm going to do that is zoom in, and I'm going to select my spot removal brush over there, and I'm simply going to hit that patch. Lightroom is going to try and identify the best area for me to patch that up, so I'm going to make sure that it's pulling from where I want it to. I don't like where it is currently. Let's pull it across and see if I can get something looking better, looking more natural. Maybe something on her face. Let's zoom out and remove that brush. Alright, that looks better already, so you're not distracted by that light point, because remember, our eyes are going to zone into the lightest point of our image first. So it's looking pretty good, however my eye is still being drawn to that light patch on her ear. Now because there's a lot of detail in the shape of her ear there, I don't want to remove that. So again, I'm going to use my adjustment brush and I'm going to use my burn tool. I'm going to go in there, I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to select this area of her ear. I'm going to hit O to make sure that I've painted everywhere that I want to paint. So that looks pretty good. I've hit all those areas. And what I do is I zoom out so I can get an overall feel, and I'm going to pull the exposure down. I don't want to overdo it. And there we go, that distracting light spot on her ear is gone. And we can see that the focus is already very much more on Kirsten, on her face, on the subject that we're trying to make pronounced in this image. Now, another final touch that I want to do is just draw a little bit more attention to her face. So I'm going to come in with a new adjustment brush. I'm going to dodge and lighten, and I'm just going to pull it over the top of her face, as that's where I really want the attention to be placed. And I'm going to bring that exposure up a little bit more, and probably around her eye as well. So what I'm going to do is come in here, and that's where I really want the attention, around her eye. And this is where I start using the principle of the point that is most in focus. Remember, we see the area that's lightest in the image first, then we see the area that's most in focus. So I'm going to bring the exposure up around her eye, and I'm going to bring a little bit more clarity to it to show you what an effect it can have to increase the focal area. So as you look at that image already, that is a lot better compared to what we started out with. So let's go a before. That's what we started out with, and here's an after, and you can see her face is glowing. The subject is really clear, and we've used the principle of light and dark to bring more attention to the face, and then the darker areas kind of fade into the background. The one spot that I want to touch up a little bit more is probably here on her shoulder area and into her hair, and I want to brush into that. I'm going to darken it again. That is the before, and that is the after. What I was able to do by understanding the three principles I outlined previously was turn an okay image into a pretty good looking image. And the first thing I did was clearly identified my subject, which in this case was Kirsten, and then I used those other two principles to draw all of the attention into my subject. So I darkened anything around her, as that would be distracting, because remember, our eyes are first drawn to the lightest point of an image, and then what I did was I lightened her face in the areas I wanted to draw attention to, and I then increased a little bit of the focal area by pushing up my clarity around her eye to create a better looking image. Now you can use these principles when you're out photographing as well. When you've got your model or your subject matter and you feel that the light is hitting them the wrong way, either you can reposition them or come back at a later point in the day to get a photograph that's going to help you tell a visual story better through understanding that your subject matter needs to be clear. You need to make sure that your subject matter is probably the lightest point in the image and the most focused point in the image as well. If you learned something from this video, I'd really appreciate it if you liked it and considered subscribing to the channel. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below and I'll do my best to address them as soon as possible. I'll catch you guys in the next video.